Speaking the truth to the state capitol. This is Drive Time Lincoln with the Commander, Jack Riggins, on the voice of Lincoln, 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, folks, whatever Wednesday here on March 15th, 70 degrees out, feels like 69. Wind is large, 26 large out of the south. But it's a nice, almost spring day before we hit some chilly temperatures through the weekend. Man, I'm telling you, spring is right around the corner. Got in a round of golf today, so I'm in a pretty decent mood. 45-minute show today, whatever Wednesday, so call in, Rick Stein Recognition Hotline, 402-479-1400, or the text line. One of the things I'm surprised about is we are at, it seems like we're always at election time in Lincoln, Nebraska, and tons of elections coming up here in April, primary, May, the big one, mayor, city council, think county commissioners, maybe I'm wrong on county commissioners, airport authority. There's tons of elections going on. It's just been quiet. People that are Lincolnites to spend the winter other places call back to me and say, hey, how's this going? How's that going? I'm like, I don't know. It's quiet. It's quiet, Johnny. It's been quiet. Once again, all candidates out there, whatever your affiliation, you are always welcome to come on the show and tell the people, who you are, what you're about, why you think they deserve your vote. I'm always happy to facilitate that on all sides of the aisle in any race. So, give us a shout out. You can email me at commanderjack@klin.com and we'll go from there. But yeah, it's just been interesting. I don't know why that is. To me, it seems like there's a lot of really important races here in Lincoln and around the county. And given everything over the last couple of years with COVID, riots, honestly, the Biden White House and policies and different decisions, of where taxpayers' money's going and how that filters down to us here, in Lincoln, Nebraska, I would think people would be really interested. So we'll see, call in today. Tell me about your candidate. Tell me why you like a candidate. Tell me why you don't like a certain candidate or something. Folks, the only way we get educated is by talking about it. I guess I should be given a shout out. I'm not sure how I feel about this, but that's it. Electric scooters return to Lincoln after a successful pilot season. You can find that article on KLN.com, as well as our great newsroom has put out some clips on it. I will say this. I did listen to the clip, and I have seen the nice little Lime scooters downtown, speckled around downtown, sometimes just laying around downtown. Hey, not my thing, folks, as you can imagine. Some kind of new age thing. The good father upstairs gave me 2 feet. I just walk when I need to go somewhere, and if it's a little further than that, I drive. I have no problem at all. As a matter of fact, the grumpier I get as I get older, I'm going to ensure that I increase my carbon footprint just to spite people, because it's my American right. And so I will be looking for the worst vehicle possible as I age so I can put a bigger carbon footprint to make other people. But to some people who it appears to be a good idea, I'm sure the fact they're a little bit painted green and they're electric and all of that, it is part of the climate change / do your part. And I will say this, I was very surprised. They said there was 91,000 individual rides used by 25,000 individual users. Cool. Just a sign of changing times. Have your little scooters and buzz around, and people, that's a pretty good clip of people using them. 91,000 rides, 25,000 individual users. It's kind of like, I'm dating myself, but to me, that's, every college kid essentially at the University of Nebraska at least getting on the dang thing once. So nonetheless, we have proven that we care, and we got that nice contract to get up to 250 scooters. So there you go. Johnny, do you think there's an age kind of limit on the scooters? I see that at a certain age, people probably don't use the scooters.
I don't know.
You don't know? Have you used one?
No, I have not.
Really? Yeah, neither have I. I wonder, now that they're going to be a permanent part of our landscape, if I will use just to do it, right? Like, hey, let's be hip. Let's try to use one.
That's what I'm trying to think. If there's a limit on like how old to be, or how old is too old. Like, I don't know.
Oh, I don't think you could be too old at all. I mean, I think you just scan your thing and off you go, right? Now, I think certainly, like I'm alluding to, I think certain ages are just like, yeah, whatever. It's just not a thing they're going to do. But I certainly think that any age could use them. Obviously, if you have some balance issues, you should be a little bit careful. But nonetheless, hey, it's something to highlight on a whatever Wednesday. I mean, I'd prefer, people call in about anything, to be honest, but I'm trying to say, hey, let's talk politics a little bit because we've got some races coming up. But, I don't get to tell the audience what to say. Oh, Scott, longtime listener, absolute number one, far and away texter. Texted in on the Rick Stein recognition text line, as he often does. And I swear, I just need to write a book for you, Scott. I hope you got my my skiff talks yesterday about music, and I gave some insights into the music I listened to. You have asked, which is totally fair on a whatever Wednesday, favorite crime show to watch on TV. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm probably dated a little bit, but I'm going to go in chronological order for me. My wife and I, before I think we had children, and even in the early years, we got by and got so into the original CSI that, I mean, we bought the box DVD set. My wife and I watched the old CSI, the original, like no tomorrow. I think we burned through the DVDs. And I think that was probably the first crime show that I really enjoyed. Now, you can imagine that I certainly love Dexter. I mean, I don't think my wife did, but I absolutely enjoyed Dexter. Just because, his methods weren't right, but his reasons for bringing justice were absolutely right. More recently, I would say that the missus and I have always, probably the longest standing one we've watched is Special Victims Unit. Absolutely. We've absolutely loved Special Victims Unit. They've had different casts come through there. Some of the key ladies, the dark-haired lady, beautiful lady, I can't think of her name right now. She's existed. Ice Cube or Ice-T, one of the two's been on there. So it's been a great show. And then I also have enjoyed, I'm having a blank right now, Tom Selleck's deal, Blue Bloods. I've enjoyed Blue Bloods. So those would be my, did I give you three there? Those would be my top three, at least family friendly. Then Dexter, which, takes a special type of soul to watch, but I enjoyed Dexter as well. But I've enjoyed Blue Bloods, and I think I like Blue Bloods because they do kind of decently have a family entity in there. It's kind of an old school family entity. All right, Lauren, we'll get to you when we come back off a break on the phone lines. All right, 1400-99.3 KLIN.
You're getting the 411 from DTL with Commander Jack Riggins on 1499.3 KLIN.
All right, folks, back on a Whatever Wednesday here. We got a few callers. I do have to say it's interesting. Why would Democrats skip the hearing on the southern border with the Border Patrol chiefs there? I mean, why would they skip that? Hasn't he earned the right to be able to sit and talk to the elected officials? That's just, why has everything got to be politicized? What's the reason for walking out and not listening to what the Border Patrol chief and experts on the border have to say? I don't know. Interesting. Oh, we've got somebody who wants to talk local politics. Good. Lauren, welcome to Drive Time Lincoln.
Well, thank you, Commander Jack, for having me on today. I couldn't help but call in after you said you wanted to bring some awareness to what's going on in the local political scene.
Well, I want people to talk about it. Just seems like it's all been quiet around here.
Yeah, there's a plethora of candidates running for all the different city council races across Lincoln. I wanted to highlight one of those specifically in District 2.
Oh, that's right. That's McGinnis's seat.
That's right. So he's no longer running. And there's a few people in that race, but one that I wanted to bring to attention was Peter Katz is running, and he's running as a registered Republican.
Wait, didn't he hold office as a Democrat?
Yes, you're correct. You are correct. That's right. And so
What's going on?
He's unable to even receive an endorsement from the party because he switched to the registered Republican so recently. So that's interesting of note for sure.
That's really interesting. Okay, did he hold? I know he was a Democrat. Did he hold a city council previously?
Not city council, but it was a local position.
Okay. Well, this is strange. There's got to be an angle here. There always is, right? There always is, at least in my opinion. So what's up with him? I'm assuming you're not for him?
Well, the angle here, Commander, is that he's being run by the consulting firm Axiom Strategies, which has a long history of impropriety in the state of Nebraska, if anyone's familiar with Axiom Strategies. So that's the angle. But the second part...
Why is there always an angle with Axiom Strategies? Like, every caller that calls in about it or anything I look up, there's always something... It's just fishy. I'm just sorry, but it's just always fishy.
I know it. Well, it turns out Peter Katz is actually facing 2 lawsuits right now as well.
Oh, boy.
If you can believe it. So we've got this guy running for local office here in Lincoln. He's currently under 2 lawsuits. One, and you can look this up, this is all public information, filed in Sarpy District Court. The River Oaks Development is the plaintiff, and defendant is Peter W. Katz. Complains that the defendant, Peter W. Katz, of impropriety, fiduciary duty, fraud, conspiracy to defraud, and conversion against the plaintiff. So that is
innocent until proven guilty, but those aren't great things. There's also other people running for that seat as well, right?
Oh yes, you have a longtime Lincoln police officer, Tom Duden, 26 years on the LPD police force, running in District 2 Lincoln City Council seat. Tom Duden is certainly the guy to look at in that race. He's a great guy. He wants to bring some real security, a sense of safety back to the Lincoln community. So obviously, it would be great to have him as an addition to the Lincoln City Council. All
right, I'm getting it. You're going to vote for Duden. You're making us aware of Peter Katz. I'll have to reach out to both and see if Mr. Katz or Mr. Duden will come on the show. But that is a really strange, fishy thing with Peter Katz that you just told me in the audience.
Yeah, thank you, Commander.
You bet. Thanks for the call, Lauren. Okay, geez, Brian, why'd you drop off the line? Brian, call back. You wanted to call back. You said Afghanistan. I'd love to talk about that. One, I just always enjoy when Brian calls in because we usually see things differently politically. But I think actually there are a lot of things we see the same, and I enjoy talking with him. And I think it's good for this audience because it's probably more of a conservative leaning audience. So Brian, if you want to, if you have the time, please feel free to call back. I don't know if you just ran out of time or what, but that happens. Okay, well, Lauren, we did get a call. I said, yeah, let's talk politics. I wasn't tracking that. I think it's a little more difficult when you have all these other races. The mayor I track, but some of the down ballot. Yeah, that's just interesting, right? I mean, you can't. I mean, if you held an office as a Democrat, it's right there for everybody to see. So I'm sure Lauren isn't blowing smoke to us when he says that. And certainly the court records are easy to find. Innocent until proven guilty, obviously, but nonetheless, when somebody's got some lawsuits going on when they're running for office, you have to wonder why, or you should. And then Axiom Strategies, I mean, obviously they have what's the word? There's a contentious part of the Republican Party that, that Axiom is part of and that other people are part of on another side. And, it depends on, I guess, which side of the Republican Party aisle you stand and how you feel about Axiom Strategies. But, ultimately, a lot of people, in Lincoln in particular, aren't big fans. And so interesting. And then Tom Duden sounds like, former police officer. He's endorsed by several former officers. I mean, he has a lot of experience. So, I mean, that'll be interesting. I guess we'll have to follow it now that Lauren has brought it up to us, and we'll go from there. The other Scott, not Scott, who is constantly longtime listener, absolute number one texter, at least to this show. The other Scott says he's pretty sure Peter Cat will be on the Lancaster County cards that neighborhood captains will be distributing. Well, I mean, that would make sense. I mean, if he's legitimately a registered Republican now, the parties, both parties have their ways of going around and educating voters of who's running in every race, and they do not discriminate, if you will, on their material or cards, because it's not their job to shade votes, right? It's their job to make sure people understand who the candidates are. I do know that the parties will endorse people here and there, but I would assume that Tom Duden and Peter Cat are both on materials being distributed, say, by the Lancaster County Republican Party. That would make sense to me, but it's also good information, other Scott, and thank you for texting in. Let's see, Johnny, we got 1 minute. I'll get you on quick. Johnny, what's going on? Got a minute.
Thanks for taking my call. The Army is trying to recruit, and they're having problems. I kind of read through some of the articles, and it was a while ago. I was just wondering why that is. It just seems
Well, I read an article, Johnny, maybe, did you say then there that 75% of the eligible population right now doesn't even meet the body fat standards of the Army? I mean, that's one problem.
That's where I was going with it, but apparently they're blaming wokeness. I don't really see that as the issue.
Oh, I think that's part of it too. But I mean, like everything, there's no one issue. I mean, I don't have any inside knowledge, but I certainly have my opinions, which I'll happily share. So yeah, thanks for calling in on that. That is sad and interesting. We'll talk about it when I come back. 1499.3 KLIN.
Attacking NATO and U.S. troops. And when Trump says we should have hung on to Bagram, well, the agreement was to be out entirely, so I don't know how you do that without any troops there. And so really the choices were, and the troops were taken from 13,000 when the agreement was signed to just 2,500 by January 2021.
Okay.
So the question is, and it was the first thing we ever talked about, you were saying Biden should have been impeached for leaving so many allies and equipment behind. Mm-hmm. And I was saying, well, he could have been impeached for, taking away the guns and the personnel from the Afghan government and blamed for their government falling. So anyway, the question would be when there are only 2,500 there and it already, the choice was, and it wouldn't have been possible to really reverse what was happening with just the 2,500. So the question is, what would you have done? Do you get out or do you stay? And in trying to stay, do you put troops back into the country? And then maybe you're going to be blamed for having more casualties then? That's the question.
Oh, no, it's real simple. I mean, obviously these agreements are made a lot of times and they have to change and situation on the ground changes. But I think that all Americans, myself included, know that it was time to begin to retrograde, as we call it in the military, from Afghanistan. And there's good ways to do that and bad ways to do that, which obviously lead to eventually, a pullout. And obviously, since we went down to such a level that we couldn't do an effective retrograde and pullout, is that we more than likely needed to surge troops in there to set the conditions for which we could do a safe pullout for not only our own people and allies, but as safe as we could for the people that were there. And yes, that may have cost more American lives by doing that, but in the end, that would have been, at least militarily, the correct way to retrograde. And that just didn't happen, right? And these agreements and people like Pompeo, of course, they're going to say things. And, if the Taliban weren't holding up to theirs or weren't part of it, it begs the question whether it was actually a legitimate agreement or not, whether it was a Trump administration or whoever. But I think those things are more fluid than people think. And in the end of the day, Brian, we just didn't do a good job at the pullout. And we left a lot of stuff behind, and it was a bad both military decision and political decision. And I think that will stand the test of time. There were better ways to do it, and we didn't do it.
Okay. And have you ever read the poem "The Young British Soldier" by Rudyard Kipling?
Well, I have heard of Kipling. I can't say that I can memorize anything he's written, but give it to me.
Okay. The last stanza is, "When you're wounded and left on Afghanistan's plains, and the women come out to cut up what remains, just roll to your rifle and blow out your brains, and go to your God like a soldier of the Queen."
Yeah, well, that's why he's British and not American. Americans don't do that, but it's a good quote. I understand what he's saying. And, that was written in a different time. And I would say that most people don't prescribe to that today. And, there's better ways to retrograde, and we just didn't do it. And I'll stick with that. I appreciate the call. Good thoughts. Great quote on the poem. Yeah, that's a good call. That's heavy stuff. It really is. You could talk all kinds of stuff about that. I want to go back here while I have a few minutes, and good call, Brian. Appreciate it. Johnny, yeah, looking it up quickly, I would agree with you. I don't think of the crisis in recruitment as being a woke problem either. I think that, what I'm looking at is the typical traditional fears. It is true. It doesn't help that 71% of the youth don't qualify as they currently sit for military service. Basically, they're obese, and so they need to go on programs to get thinned up and kind of get ready. That's kind of a sad piece just about society, no doubt about it. But I think one of the greatest articles is on Fortune.com, and it listen, in the military, you put up with a lot of BS, a lot of extra, the UCMJ, extra laws, extra, stuff, which is good stuff. To, keep the force and the morale of the force to be fighting. Wokeness or COVID vaccines, it's just another layer of that stuff. And so I wouldn't blame that for the recruiting, but I do think the, Major General Alex Fink, head of Army marketing, says it well. What they're getting in their data is young people don't want to die or get injured or deal with the stress of Army life and put their lives on hold. That's fair, and that is a very traditional answer. But that also comes from the way our society is right now, and you add in the 71% essentially not physically fit, and those kind of all go together. It makes sense, right? If you're not physically fit and all of this, and the last thing you can think about is climbing a wall and doing all the stuff the Army asks. But I think this is the best sentence. Young people just don't see the Army as something that's relevant. They see us as revered, but not relevant in their lives. I think that's fair. Now, what I will say to young people is, that's good until you need that Army. And then that Army is going to be extremely relevant. So it's a great way to start your life. It's a great way to serve your fellow country in the world. And I hope that younger people will consider service to start their lives, as many are, just not as many currently. And in the end of the day, you get discipline, you get a job skill, you know how to take care of yourself. And to be honest, the world needs you. The world needs you. The world needs people that want to serve and sacrifice. So I hope you'll consider it. Good calls, everybody. Johnny, Brian, Lauren. Enjoy basketball. 1400 99.3 KLIN.